This is Eliana. Hi, Eliana.
Hi.
And I met Eliana 2 years ago at the Woodstock Fruit Festival in New York. She was very excited about going to the raw food lifestyle and getting her health back, and I would like her to tell a very powerful story and life transformation that she had around raw food and healing.
Okay, so yeah, I was at the Woodstock Fruit Festival 2 years ago, and I really got into the raw food lifestyle. I just loved the energy that I had. I'd never felt that way in my life, and several things have happened within the past 2 years. Just lots of freak accidents that I've had, and I've been in and out of emergency rooms and surgeries and things like that, and not because of my health, just accidents that I've had, which kind of led me to question the lifestyle, because, you know, before making all these changes in my life, I'd never had, you know, any hospitalizations or, you know, any major health problems. And it's not that I have health problems, it's just that, you know, I'm in and out of emergency rooms and just having these kinds of accidents. And so I started questioning the lifestyle, and I started reintroducing different things back into my diet, which I had cut out really a long time ago. Even, for example, gluten I had cut out even before I went raw. And I just was really, you know, people are always promoting, you know, eating anything in moderation, and while I didn't introduce any like meat or anything like that, I introduced things like gluten, alcohol I had cut out since the Woodstock Fruit Festival, and things like that, and I definitely noticed a difference. My energy wasn't there, old habits started coming back. I had lost like 78 pounds total, and
it was so noticeable and beautiful. Yeah,
weights, you know, the weight came off, and I knew that doing this, the weight would come back on. And so what I wanted to do is do it till I hit a point where I'm 5'4", where it would put me at an obese BMI, and also just because I knew how to get back. I knew that this was a lifestyle that really, it's so simple. You just do it, and it takes you where you need to go. And so I also wanted to do it to show people that you can be obese and you can follow that lifestyle, and it really just takes care of itself. And so, as I said, I started reintroducing different things. I live in Manhattan, so like takeout and different stuff. And I still was, you know, eating, you know, having my juices or my smoothies, but I added this stuff in, and so the ratios completely changed. Right. And this was back in November, and what I noticed was, you know, I reached an obese BMI in like December 30th or so, and so it was, you know, New Year, perfect time to make that transition back to going raw. And the things that I noticed were, you know, these crazy food cravings that I never even had before I went raw. So I did have kind of a hard time going back, but I knew what I needed to do to take me back to that place. And so I just kept eating clean as much as I could, and eventually I got there. And the crazy thing that happened to me was that I was working one day, I was completely fine, I was back to, you know, having that energy come back, and I hadn't been sick the whole time that I was raw, and so I was very in touch with my body. And all of a sudden I started getting a headache, and I haven't had a headache in 2 years, except for that time where I did introduce these things back into my diet.
Such as gluten.
Yeah, and so I used to have migraine auras. And so you get these visual distortions, and before I changed my diet, I used to have them at least once a month, and in the 2 years I didn't have one, and I think I had like 1 or 2 during the few months that I introduced these things back in. But since I started eating clean, I didn't have any at all, and so I started getting a headache, and I started getting worried, and then all of a sudden I got very nauseous. And I know how I feel when I eat 100% raw, and I don't feel, I mean, I feel amazing, and so I knew something was very wrong. And so I ended up going into urgent care, and on the way there I was vomiting the whole time, and they checked my vitals. I had a very high temperature, my blood pressure was really low, so then they called an ambulance, and I ended up in the emergency room, and that's the last thing I remember.
And what was the problem?
So I woke up, and I thought I had just woken up straight from the emergency room, and the doctor tells me I was in a coma for 3 days, and that I had spinal meningitis.
Wow.
And so the really strange thing is that, you know, for my age group, the normal meningitis would be the viral meningitis, but that's not the one I had. I had bacterial meningitis, which is strep B, which is on your hands, like it's everywhere.
So Eliana, you were in a coma due to the spinal meningitis. Can you tell us what happened, how you got out of it?
Sure. So, I mean, I was out, so I'm not sure what happened, but what the doctors were telling my mom during that time is, you know, they were saying, we don't know if she's going to make it through this. She might have brain damage. She might be paralyzed. She might not even remember who she is. These were the things they were telling my mom while I was in a coma. I was in the ICU for a total of 4 days. I was in the hospital for 8 days. And the doctors were very worried. At the time, I didn't know what meningitis was, but it's a pretty serious condition, especially the bacterial meningitis. And I just went back to what I knew. So I rejected all the hospital food. So my parents brought me, you know, just raw fruits and vegetables to the hospital, and I just started recovering. And the 8th day that I left the hospital, I continued just to be 100% raw. And I would go back to my doctors, and they were just completely amazed at my recovery. I was back to work a week after, and I was working remotely. A week after that, I was fully back at work. Usually it takes people months to recover, sometimes 6 months or even longer. I had absolutely no long-term side effects or anything from what happened to me, and it's just a little bit over a month, and here I am at the Woodstock Food Festival in Hawaii. I went hiking, I've been active, I feel amazing, my energy's back, and I know that it's all due to the raw foods.